Who gave you this necklace?
Don't touch him! It belonged to my father!
The billionaire froze. His chest tightened. His whole world stopped. Daddy's necklace. Who was this child, and how did he end up with something that belonged only to him? Stick around and find out. The afternoon sun was hot, but Kendrick Adams did not feel it. He sat in the back of his black SUV, staring out of the tinted window, lost in thought. His company was growing, his bank accounts were full, and people respected his name everywhere. Yet, deep inside him, there was a strange emptiness he could never explain. "Sir, we've arrived," the driver said gently. Kendrick nodded, but before the car could move again, something caught his eye, a small boy. The boy stood by the roadside, crying quietly. His clothes were old but clean. His slippers were worn out. But what made Kendrick's heart skip was not the boy's tears. It was what hung around the boy's neck. A necklace. Kendrick leaned forward sharply. His breath caught in his throat. That necklace, he whispered. "Stop the car," he said suddenly. The driver braked immediately. Kendrick stepped out of the car and walked toward the boy. The closer he got, the more his heart pounded. He knew that necklace. He had known it all his life. It was his. The same necklace engraved with his family name, K. Adams. He had lost it years ago. No matter how hard he searched, it was never found. Now it was hanging on the neck of a crying child. Kendrick knelt in front of the boy slowly. "Hey, why are you crying?" he asked softly. The boy wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "My mommy is sick," he said in a small voice. "She needs medicine." Kendrick swallowed hard and pointed gently. "That necklace, where did you get it?" The boy immediately held it tightly and stepped back. "Don't touch it," he said firmly. "It's my daddy's necklace." Kendrick froze. The world seemed to stop moving. "Your daddy?" he whispered. "Yes," the boy nodded. "My mommy said I must never let anyone touch it. It's the only thing my daddy left." Kendrick's chest tightened painfully. "What is your name?" he asked. "Daniel," the boy replied. "And your mommy?" Kendrick asked, his voice shaking now. "What is her name?" "Nuella." Kendrick didn't recognize the name. He looked at the boy again. The boy had his eyes. Kendrick stood up suddenly. "Daniel," he said gently, "take me to your mommy." 5 years ago, Nuella was young, hopeful, and struggling. She lived in a small room with her best friend. They often went to bed hungry, but Nuella never complained. One day, she always said, "My life will change." That morning, her life did change. She got a job at a hotel. They decided celebrated that night, even though Nuella didn't want to go out. They dressed up and went to a popular club in the city. Loud music, dancing, and people laughing. It was like another world. At a private lounge in the club, Kendrick, a 33-year-old billionaire, sat alone with tears in his eyes. He was a successful businessman, rich, respected, and handsome. But his heart was broken. He had just been betrayed by someone he loved and trusted the most, his fiancée. He caught her in bed with his best friend. So he sat quietly drinking heavily, hoping to forget the pain. Soon he became drunk. His men helped him upstairs to his private room in the hotel above the club. He could barely walk. His eyes were red. His thoughts were heavy. Back at the club, Nuella started feeling weak. The drink had began to take strong effect on her because she was a light drinker. She told her friend she needed to rest. "I need to lie down. I feel dizzy," she said. She walked upstairs quietly, searching for a resting place. She saw a hotel room door, half open. It was quiet and dark inside. She walked in slowly, lay on the bed, and closed her eyes. Sleep took her, quickly. She didn't know it was Kendrick's room. A few minutes later, Kendrick walked into his room. His eyes were tired. His steps were slow. When he saw Nuella on the bed in his drunken state, he thought she was someone his friend had arranged to comfort him. He didn't say anything. That night, in confusion, pain, and weakness, they became intimate. The next morning, Nuella woke up. Her head was spinning. She sat up and looked around. The room was quiet. She touched her body and quickly stood up, shocked and confused. She knew something had happened, but there was no one in the room. Then her eyes fell on a beautiful necklace lying beside the pillow. She picked it up and held it close. It looked expensive. It had a name on it, K. Adams. She didn't know who it belonged to, but she knew it had to be the mystery man. She wanted to drop it, but something inside had told her to keep the necklace safe. On the table, she also saw some money. Tears filled her eyes. "What happened to me last night?" Nuella whispered. She quickly dressed up and ran home. A month later, she discovered she was pregnant. She cried. She prayed. But she decided to keep the baby. With no father or support, she raised him alone. Back to the present, Daniel led Kendrick through narrow streets until they reached a small, old house. "This is our house," Daniel said. Inside, Isabella lay weak on a thin mattress, sweating and weak. "Mommy," Daniel cried, "I brought someone." Kendrick stepped in slowly. When Nuella lifted her head and their eyes met, neither of them recognized the past yet. But fate had already spoken. The necklace had brought them back together, and the truth. Was about to change everything. Kendrick stood quietly inside the small room, his expensive shoes looking out of place on the cracked floor. The air smelled of medicine and damp walls. This was a world he had never known. Nuella tried to sit up, but her body was weak. "Please, don't stress yourself," Kendrick said gently, helping her rest against the wall. "I need to take you to the hospital." Nuella nodded slowly. "Thank you." Kendrick looked at Daniel. The boy sat close to his mother, holding her hand tightly. The necklace rested on his small chest. Kendrick's heart beat faster. He turned back to Nuella. "Please, I hope you don't mind me asking. That necklace your son is wearing, where did it come from?" Nuella hesitated. She looked at Daniel, then at the necklace, then back at Kendrick. "It belonged to his father," she said quietly. Kendrick felt a tight pain in his chest. "And who is his father?" Nuella shook her head slowly. "I don't know his name." Kendrick's brows furrowed. "You don't know?" She swallowed hard. "I never saw his face. It happened 5 years ago." The room fell silent. Daniel looked between them, confused. Nuella took a shaky breath, her hands trembling as she clasped Daniel's small ones. "It was the night I got my first real job. I was so happy. I wanted to celebrate. So my best friend convinced me to go out." Her voice broke slightly. "I didn't know what was coming. I felt dizzy. I was weak. And somehow I ended up in a hotel room. The next morning, the man was gone. All I had was this necklace." Kendrick's eyes widened. His pulse quickened. He recognized it instantly. The familiar engraving, K. Adams. His heart thumped painfully in his chest, each beat echoing memories of a night he had tried to forget. I didn't even remember that night until now," Kendrick said slowly, his voice shaking. "That necklace, it's mine." Nuella froze. Daniel's little hand clutched her fingers tighter. "Yours?" she whispered, disbelief written all over her face. "Yes," Kendrick admitted, swallowing hard. 5 years ago, I was devastated, betrayed by someone I trusted. I drank too much, and that night I lost control. I didn't even realize what happened." He trailed off, his throat tight. Daniel tilted his head, looking at Kendrick curiously. "Are you my daddy?" Kendrick knelt slowly, coming to eye level with the boy. His voice softened. "Yes, I think I might be your daddy." Daniel's small eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," Kendrick said, his hands hovering over the necklace, but afraid to touch it. Nuella's eyes filled with tears. Her body sagged against the wall, relief, shock, and fear all mixing together. "All these years, I raised him alone, not knowing who he was." Her voice trembled. "I don't know if I can forgive myself for keeping him in the dark." Kendrick shook his head slowly, emotion heavy in his chest. "No, you did everything right. You protected him, raised him with love. I failed, but I want to make it right. I want to be there for both of you." Kendrick reached for Daniel's small hand, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise I'll make up for the time I missed. I'll protect you. I'll be here." Tears rolled down Nuella's cheeks as she watched the interaction. For the first time in 5 years, a weight lifted from her chest. She didn't know exactly what the future would bring, but for the first time, she felt hope. Kendrick didn't waste a single second. He gently helped Nuella into his car, Daniel clinging to her side. "We are going to get you checked properly," he said, his tone calm but firm. At the hospital, Kelvin refused to leave her side. He filled out the forms, spoke to the doctors, and stayed in the room as the nurses examined her. Nuella found herself lying awake at night, replaying the past. She remembered the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering if Daniel's father even cared or if he even existed. Now he was here, but questions lingered. Could she trust him? Could she allow herself to love him? Kendrick, meanwhile, struggled with guilt. He had spent years building a life, chasing money and success, but the moment he saw Daniel, his son, he realized everything else had been meaningless. But how do you make up for years of absence? How do you step into a life that has moved on without you? The next morning came quietly. Soft sunlight filtered through the hospital window as Nuella slowly opened her eyes. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she felt the steady beep of the machine beside her and remembered everything. Daniel was asleep on the small couch, curled up like a kitten. And beside her bed, sitting in an uncomfortable chair, was Kendrick. He was asleep too. His suit jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up. His head leaned back against the wall, exhaustion written all over his face. For the first time, Kendrick Adams did not look like a billionaire. He looked like a man who had finally found what he didn't know he was missing. Nuella stared at him for a long time. 5 years ago, she had cursed this unknown man in her heart. She had cried because of him, struggled because of him. Yet here he was now, refusing to leave her side. She shifted slightly, and Kendrick's eyes opened immediately. "You're awake," he said softly, standing up at once. "How do you feel?" "Better," Nuella replied honestly. "The doctor said it was severe malaria. If Daniel hadn't brought help when he did." Her voice broke. Kendrick swallowed hard. "I thank God every second that I saw him yesterday." Daniel stirred and rubbed his eyes. "Mommy," he murmured. Nuella smiled. "I'm here, baby." Daniel looked at Kendrick shyly, then sat up. "Daddy, are you going to go away again?" The question pierced Kendrick's heart like a knife. He knelt in front of Daniel and looked him straight in the eyes. "No, I promise you, I'm not going anywhere." Daniel studied his face carefully, as if testing the truth of his words. Then slowly, he leaned forward and hugged him. Kendrick froze. No one had hugged him like that in years. His arms wrapped around the boy tightly, his eyes burning. In that moment, he knew this was not something money could buy. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Nuella and Daniel moved out of the old house. Kendrick didn't force them into his mansion immediately. Instead, he placed them in a comfortable apartment close to the hospital and insisted Nuella recover fully first. "I don't want you to feel trapped," he told her one evening. "I want you to choose this life, not be pushed into it." That respect touched Nuella deeply. Kendrick began spending time with Daniel every day. He took him to school himself, sat through parent meetings, and even learned how to pack lunch, something he had never done in his life. The media soon noticed. Billionaire Kendrick Adams steps out with mystery woman and child. Rumors flew, but Kendrick didn't care. For the first time, he was proud of what people could see. One evening, as Daniel slept, Kendrick and Nuella sat on the balcony in silence. "I was angry for a long time," Nuella finally said. "Not just at you, at life. I deserve that anger," Kendrick replied quietly. "I wasn't there. I should have looked for you. I should have taken responsibility." "You didn't even know," she said softly. "But what matters now is what you do next." Kendrick turned to her. "I want to do right by you. Not because of guilt, but because I care deeply." Nuella's heart trembled. "Care or obligation?" Kendrick shook his head firmly. "Care. I don't want to force anything, but I want to earn your trust." Slowly, tears filled her eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, happiness had not passed her by. Months later, Daniel stood proudly on a school stage, holding a small trophy. Kendrick and Nuella sat side by side in the audience. Best Student Award goes to Daniel Adams. The surname echoed loudly. Nuella held her breath. Kendrick squeezed her hand gently, smiling softly. Later that evening, Kendrick stood before Nuella with a small box in his hand. "This time," he said, his voice steady, "I am sober. I am present, and I am sure." He opened the box, not to reveal the necklace, but a ring. "I won't promise perfection," he continued, "but I promise honesty, loyalty, and love. Will you walk this journey with me?" Nuella looked at him, the man who once represented pain, now standing as proof of redemption. She smiled through tears. "Yes." Years later, the necklace rested in a glass frame in their home, not as a symbol of loss, but as a reminder that sometimes, Fate hides answers in the most unexpected places, and that even broken nights can lead to beautiful mornings. Moral lesson. This story teaches us that no matter how successful or powerful a person becomes, true fulfillment comes from responsibility, accountability, and love. The past may be filled with mistakes, pain, and unanswered questions, but when truth finally comes to light, it gives us a chance to choose differently. It teaches us that running from our errors only deepens the wound, while facing them with humility can heal lives we never knew we broke. The story reminds us that single parents who carry burdens alone are stronger than they know, and that children born from hardship are not mistakes, but blessings waiting to be acknowledged. Above all, it teaches us that redemption is possible, families can be restored, and it is never too late to do the right thing. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our channel for amazing stories like this.